All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Montebello Moves Pico Rivera Community Meeting.
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Gilman, Public Information Officer here. Great to have you all here. We're going to have a couple of people continue trickling here, but while we're here, I'm inviting you all to participate once we come to the time for that. Easily able to do here on Zoom. You're going to raise your hand there in the control settings there. If you have any issues during the meeting or anytime we're doing the Q&A, please feel free to answer your question or any issues you're having in the chat section. I'll be happy to look into those as the meeting progresses. To lower your hand, you're going to put the raised hand in your meeting controls as well. If you're joining us by phone here, you're going to press *9 on the phone line to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Again, if you have any issues there, again, please feel free to add them in the chat there. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask a question once we get to that time of the presentation. For any comments and questions here in the chat as well, if you have any issues, put them there. But again, if you just want to ask your questions there as well, please feel free to put them in the chat section there as well. So I think that about does it, and we will move on to the introduction. So everybody, welcome here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luisa Ibarra. I'm the Director of Transportation for Montebello Bus Lines. And with me here is John Sawyer, Transit Manager. He's also been the project manager for this particular project. Adriana Kendricks, who is now our Assistant Director of Transportation at Montebello Bus Lines. And of course, Alex Gilman, our Public Information Officer.
Good afternoon. I'm James Gomez. I'm the project manager for Montebello Moves, and I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues, Peter Soderberg, he's the deputy project manager, and also Karina Macias, who is a project planner. Well, again, thanks again for joining us this afternoon. We'd like to begin the discussion by first providing an overview of the project Montebello Moves. Montebello Moves is a comprehensive evaluation of the entire bus system. We've looked at every single route in the system, as well as every single bus stop. We've been also examining things such as ridership, as well as population and employment characteristics and travel patterns to understand what are some of the key transportation needs within the city of Montebello and the area that it serves. We have also conducted a couple of rounds of community outreach to hear directly from the riders themselves, as well as other members of the community, as far as what are some of the transportation improvements that they would like to see. Montebello Moves will ultimately result in recommendations to move the system forward with different route changes as well as scheduling changes. The project horizon will be 5-year service plan, and we'll look at not only service improvements, but also some of the capital improvements that will help facilitate some of those service upgrades. The project kicked off back in July of 2021, and the first phase of the project was the service and market analysis. So this was that really deep dive into the system to see what are some of the strengths and weaknesses, as well as opportunities to improve. We conducted a round of community outreach last fall that included a rider survey, as well also a couple of pop-up meetings and some direct outreach with bus riders. After we obtained that initial input from the community, we started to develop different service scenarios. And after working collaboratively with staff, we took those back out to the community this spring. We shared those different ideas with bus riders and the community at large, and we received a lot of feedback on some of the things that they liked and did not like about those changes. As a result of that feedback, we made some modifications, and we are now at the stage of recommending route and schedule changes for the short term, and that'll also lead to longer term changes to the system. The slide on the screen summarizes some of the key community outreach activities that took place both last fall as well as this spring. The rider survey was one of the most important because we got to hear directly from the riders about some of the things that they would like to see improved, but also some of their just day-to-day travel characteristics, such as how often they use the service, what are some of the different destinations they're traveling to, and how they pay for the system. We also had two different online surveys. So that gave the community the opportunity to provide input, even if they're not regular riders. We held pop-up events at different locations that Mdl serves, such as East LA College, We also went out to different key bus stops to talk to the riders themselves. We put flyers on buses. We had virtual public meetings, discussions with key community stakeholders. And all along, we've had a project website sharing some of the key findings as well as proposals for Montebello Moves. Social media was also an important method of reaching out to the community and just spreading the word about the project. All in all, we've had good feedback from the community that's helped inform us on what are some of the changes that should be made in the future. Next, I'd like to provide a quick overview of the Mdl system. It's a pretty expansive system that goes well beyond the city limits of Montebello to cover several different cities within the region. The lines mostly operate on arterial streets, so major streets, and they make regular stops. There's one exception, one route, line 90, which operates more of an express route. And as you can see on the screen, the routes operate a combination of east-west and north-south corridors. There are also two routes that are a bit unique in that they are much shorter, and those would be line 60 and line 70 that operate within the city of Montebello, line 70, and then line 60 in Pico Rivera. The Mdl system connects to many other transit systems within the LA region, and we see that riders who take Montebello can also take other services such as LA Metro and other systems. For tonight's meeting, we're focused on line 60, which runs in throughout Pico Rivera. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the more unique lines in the system because it runs on mostly neighborhood streets rather than big arterial streets. The nature of the corridor is mostly single-family homes, residential. There are other land uses involved, but for the most part, it's more of a lower density, lower ridership corridor. Service is limited to weekdays only between 6 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. And it's also a service that's less frequent than the other Mdl lines, with buses running every 75 to 80 minutes throughout the day. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, service was suspended back in April of 2020, and it was restored this past fall in September of 2021. And now I'm going to hand it to my colleague to talk a little bit more about some of the ridership conditions. Peter?
I just got my permissions back to unmute. Sorry about that. So one of our first findings when we start to kind of compare the ridership specifically for line 60 to other routes in the system, particularly at an average daily boardings perspective, is that line 60 really serves fewer riders than most other Mdl routes. In 2019, line 60 averaged about 420 daily boardings, which accounted for about 3% of system ridership. And when you compare that to some of those longer, more extensive routes operating on those larger arterials, it's much smaller daily ridership on line 60. So we took a detailed look at average daily ridership for every stop along the line 60 alignment. And first, what we saw is that 80% of these stops average fewer than 10 riders per day, but there are a few areas that do have notably higher ridership than the rest of the route. These in particular are at El Rancho High School, just north of Washington Boulevard along Passons, at the El Super grocery store at Slauson, Northgate Market off of Telegraph Road, and at Whittier Boulevard, which provides connections to the Montebello Bus Lines, line 10. So really seeing here is a pattern of connecting some of these residential areas with some of those community needs like grocery store shopping, access to other transit services, as well as access to the high school. Really just to summarize some of our key findings here from our initial evaluation of line 60, is that line 60 does have historically lower ridership than many of the other Mdl routes. And it also operates a really shorter neighborhood-oriented service, whereas more of the Mdl routes typically operate over longer distances and major streets, which really sets it up as a unique route in the Mdl system that doesn't necessarily align with all the other services provided by Mdl. And finally, one of the key opportunities we noted here is that there's an opportunity to shift resources used for Line 60 that may enable MBL to increase service in some of the higher demand areas throughout the service area. And with that, I'll turn it back over to James to discuss some of our aspects of the proposed service change.
All right, thank you, Peter. So at this point in the study, we are recommending the discontinuation of line 60. The maps on the screen both show the existing route network within the area, as well as the proposed route network. So the line 60 is shown, or the corridor currently served by line 60, Passons Boulevard, is shown as a dashed line on the right side. Some of the other changes that are being proposed as part of this study focus on the edges of the system, both to the north as well as the east. On this slide, we also identify what some of the alternative services are, including LA Metro lines, as well as some of the east-west MBL lines. All right, so we'll be happy to come back to this slide as well as any of the others that we previously covered. But now we're going to move forward and talk about how we can participate in a group discussion.
Hi, thank you, James and Peter, for giving that overview. My name is Karina. I'm with Nelson Eggard, and I invite you all to, at this moment, either raise your hand in order to join the queue to be able to issue a comment or ask your question. If you're not joining us online on your computer, you can, and you're joining by phone, which doesn't look like anyone is, but I'll say it anyway. You can press *9 on your phone line, and that will add you to the queue. And I did not see any comments and questions throughout the presentation, but at this time you can, if you don't feel comfortable raising your hand to speak, you can also feel free to type in your comment or your question. Next slide, James. So we would love to hear your response to the proposed service changes, as well as how you currently use the line, or anything else you would like us to know about how you're currently using the line. Y si hay alguien que quiere dar un comentario o hacer una pregunta en español, en este momento también puede usar la pantalla para levantar su mano o agregar su pregunta en el chat. Y cuando llegue su turno, le llamamos el nombre y puede darnos su comentario. So I see Esther Mejia is looking to ask a question or make a comment. Alex, would you mind unmuting Esther?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Esther Mejia. I am a Pico Rivera resident as well as a board member at El Rancho Unified. However, I am here today as a community resident. My concern is that next school year, there's a late start that's mandated by the state. And so I'm here to advocate for our students who and our working families. They will need transportation to get to school because, as I said, at the high school, the starting time will be 8:30. So I'm concerned for working parents. I'm concerned for students getting to school on time. I'm also concerned for our adult transition program, which are students again, special needs. They use the transportation to go to locations to obtain job skills and just to navigate through the bus system. So they are self-sufficient and they travel the bus lines to get to different places. So I'm very concerned. When the bus line closed down during the pandemic, I would see families getting up really early, traveling like at 6 o'clock in the morning to try to get to the Washington transfer. And so I'm concerned for those families as well. It's something that is central to our city. It connects, the north and the south, since it runs down the line. And I know I participated as a resident in your surveys. I really hope that maybe surveys had been done at the high school level, or or with the district, so we can let our community know about these possible changes. I know that when the bus lines closed down, it did impact our families. So I'm hoping that you will reconsider. I am completely for bus lines and for reducing our carbon footprint. But again, I'm hoping that you consider keeping this line open, especially since it's going to affect our students and our working families. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Esther, for your comment. We hear you, and we've logged your contribution today. Next in the queue, I see Natalie, Glassman, Heidel, and Henry and Yvette. So let's start with Natalie. Can you please share, just as Esther, your affiliation, what the route means to you, and your comment for the team?
Hi, yes, my name is Natalie Glassman. I'm an analyst for the city of Pico Rivera. My question is, and just to piggyback on what was said already, when would these changes, when are the proposed changes to be in effect? I don't know if you can answer those types of questions.
That's an excellent question, and I'm going to call on our project manager, James, to give us a response there.
While an official date of service changes has not been set yet, we would be eyeing service changes for next fall, just prior to next fall, so probably late summer.
Next summer or this summer?
Next summer,
Next summer.
So was that your only question, Natalie?
Yeah, at this time, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heidel?
Hi there.
Hello, you were just accidentally unmuted. Let me unmute you, sir.
I think I got it.
He's back.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. Hi there, my name is Harold Keme. I'm a resident of the city of Rivera. I'm also one of the founders of the Happy City Coalition, a advocacy organization that supports public transit and sustainable transportation in Pico Rivera, Whittier, and Downey. Mostly speaking as a resident who uses Montebello Bus and actually got home from work on 2 Montebello buses today. I don't ride line 60 much anymore. After graduating high school, I used to ride the bus to school pretty much every day. And I think the elimination of line 60 is not great, even though you do have those other options on Paramount and Rosemary Boulevard. The connection from those bus stops to the schools is a little harrowing because the streets are just not friendly to walkers here in the city of Pico Rivera. The other alternative I used to do was ride my bike down past Boulevard, which is where line 60 runs. Again, that is not a great alternative for people who want to travel along that corridor. While I said I don't use that route myself very much anymore, my mom does. She has medical appointments that she has to make along the route, and she needs to make connections to other buses. While she can use that route to make those connections, she sometimes decides to just simply walk the length of whatever her trip is instead of wait for the bus, because the frequency on the bus is so low. I believe it's about every hour. And that's just not very useful for many people who need to make appointments that are time sensitive. I understand that just limited service hours available for every transit or for the whole system, but I think what you see in the low ridership that we have here in City of Pico Rivera, I think it's a reflection of the amount of transit service that's available and people's trust in that the service will be available.
Thank you, Heidel, for that comment regarding street design and operations not being supportive of people who want to walk or bike. That's an important comment. And next, Henry and Yvette. Am I gonna hear 2 people at once? I hope not.
No, it's me, Yvette. So it's my husband and I's Zoom, personal
Gotcha.
Zoom. So we just use.
Hi, Yvette.
Hi, how are you? Okay, so my question, and forgive me, I did arrive late, so I didn't hear the beginning of the presentation. But my question is, you're eliminating line 60, and are you then going to use the buses that would normally travel on line 60 and putting them on another route so that there's more of a timely fashion of buses for another line that might be busier? Is there another bus line service that people would be able to use that the line 60 travels? Is there another bus transportation that goes that route as well?
Great questions. I'll offer responses based on what I know, and that is this Montebello Bus Line does have a fixed operating budget as well as vehicle fleet, so number of buses that they operate, and their focal point and primary mission is to provide transportation that serves the trips of people who live in Montebello and who are visiting Montebello. And they also operate a very extensive network, which is why you see this route operating in the city of Pico Rivera. The study is to look at, with those fixed amount of resources, how can the city distribute those in a way that reaches the routes with the highest demand and the greatest activity. So your hunch or your hypothesis is a good one. And there have to be some trade-offs, and this proposal is one of those. There are no transit or bus routes that travel exactly the route that is being that we're proposing here. However, they're nearby a couple of blocks. There are services that would transport you to similar areas and connect the areas that this route currently connects. And James and Peter can offer more detailed response there too.
Thank you, Cardia. So happy to describe in a little more detail what some of the repurposing of the resources include. So the two big ones are extending line 10 to Cal State LA and extending line 30 to the South Pasadena Gold Line Station. Those are two proposals that were very well received from the community, from existing riders. And we think that they will increase ridership. Also, it just improve regional connectivity, get people to some major destinations. In addition to that, over the long term, we also want to look at ways to just strengthen some of the existing lines that already do have a decent amount of ridership, but can support higher levels of activity. There are many lines in the system that have moderate ridership and do so even with limited levels of frequency that's similar to line 60. But those lines also have higher densities, population, employment, higher activity levels, and destinations that we think increasing resources to them over time will see a gain. Where line 60, there are some limitations just given the land use and the type of street that's different from the other streets that MDL operates.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So if you eliminate line 60, could the people that are speaking here that are from that Pico Rivera area would need the transportation for school or whatever their situation is and depend on line 60, could they, I guess, rally up, or how can I say it, or request to, and forgive me, I'm not, I don't use public transportation that much, but is it MTA? Is it MTA now? The bus lines for the city? Is it MTA or what is it?
The other bus lines that are operating in the city, there's LA Metro that operates bus service in Pico Rivera.
Okay. Could they reach out to them and request to have a new line 60 for, with LA Metro or the MTA buses or something like that? I mean, is there a way that they can get that to, at least provide them that service?
Right. I hear you. Typically, the way that that process would work is similar to what MBL is doing with this study. Is they look at the network of bus services that they're offering, and they would make some changes where the community is requesting them or where it's needed because of the types of destinations that are along a certain street. That process for LA Metro tends to start with the service council. So the county is divided into sub-regional service councils, and then members of the community can reach out to that service council and make the request that the bus service that is needed and describe that request. Other alternatives that I've seen in different places are other entities just stepping in to fill the need for the service. So that could look like many different ways, but that's an excellent question, and we'd be happy to follow up if you want more information about those service councils and how that process works, if you want to drop or send me your email address.
So my last comment is that if Montebello, the proposal that they're making, and I don't know who is the final decision maker of this, I don't know if it's city council or what, but if that is voted upon to approve this proposal and eliminate line 60, I think it'd be only kind to have that information that you're saying spelled out, and how they can go about requesting to have that service brought back by LA Metro or whatever. I think that would only be a kind way of helping out our neighbors that we're taking away the service of line 60 from them.
That's an excellent suggestion, Yvette. We'll be sure, whatever the outcome, that there be a discussion around potential alternatives. I don't see anybody else's hand raised. Oh, Jesse, I just saw you raising your hand. Jesse Garcia.
Hi, yes, Jesse Garcia, analyst with the city of Pico Rivera. Just a general question kind of following the group here. With the proposal of line 60, would it be subject to a Title VI analysis, or is that already in progress, or is that is that planned, or is that needed for a service change like this? I understand that happens when there's fare changes, fare table changes, service changes that would impact the communities. So I wanted to know if Montebello Bus Lines is anticipating having to complete a Title VI analysis.
That is an excellent question for James to answer. James, are we scoped to conduct a Title VI analysis as part of our work on this bus network redesign process?
Apologize, I was muted there for a second. So that's something that we will get with Mdl staff to confirm whether or not that needs to be done. As part of the study, that's one process, but then prior to any service change, that would need to be conducted. But we will get with staff to determine what would be the appropriate timeline, and can get back to you on that, Jesse.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. I can leave my email in the chat. That way I can follow up on that as well. And I'm just interested if that analysis needs to happen and what the findings would be, given that it is a bus line running through a disproportionately impacted community.
Well, thank you for that comment, Jesse. I see Pamela is queued up to ask a question.
Oh, hi there. My name is Pamela Ugar, the Parks and Rec Director for Pico Rivera, and I was just following up with what Jesse had said, because there was a letter back and forth about a year ago, James, with like a partnership discussion between Montebello and Pico Rivera, and so I think Metro does need to be advised about this, because unfortunately, there's only 21 people on this chat, but I know there's a lot of families and handicapped people. And I know a lot of senior citizens that utilize line 60, and it would be really very unfortunate if this line was dissolved and they didn't have a chance to communicate their dissatisfaction on this. So I don't know. I know you did a good job. You emailed us and we got the letter, but I don't know how it got communicated to the public, because I know that if our residents were more aware of this and had more time, I think we might have a better audience. So anyway, thank you for your time, James, and we'd really appreciate it if you let us know what the next steps are, because we hope to keep line 60 alive.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Pamela.
Pamela. Immediate next steps are we will be going out to 2 different service councils, LA Metro Service Councils, over the next couple of weeks, gateway cities, as well as San Gabriel Valley. So those will be the immediate next steps, and we have been coordinating with LA Metro, so they are aware of the proposals, but we're going to be providing an update to them over the next couple of weeks.
All right. I also want to make space for Jeff Brown, who's joining us while riding the bus. And he dropped a comment about how he was excited to see the line 60 go to the shops at Montebello, since it's extremely difficult to reach the mall from Pico Rivera. He suggests looking at canceling the line 90 instead of line 60, because this route duplicates many lines and the Gold Line. And it will be especially more attractive to take the Gold Line once Regional Connector opens in just a couple months. Thank you, Jeff, for that comment. I see hand raised by John. John, are you looking to chime in?
Yes, thank you so much, Karina. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Soria. I'm a transit administration manager with Montebello Bus Lines. I've been the project manager working in collaboration with Nelson Nygaard on this comprehensive operational analysis. And just to speak to some of the questions that have been raised from Natalie and Jesse and Pamela, we're very well aware of the need for a Title VI service equity analysis. Internally, staff is discussing next steps. What we want to do is stress the fact that this is all very preliminary. It's a preliminary presentation to begin to get some of this information out to the communities. In no way, shape, or form are we looking to neglect any of the demographics that we currently service with the line 60. As James mentioned, we are in communication with LA Metro, discussing this comprehensive operational analysis, how it impacts all of our lines, how it does impact the underserved communities, as Jesse referenced. And we definitely are taking some very cautious steps as we go forward. As our neighbors in Pico Rivera are aware, we do have a memorandum of understanding that was executed between our city council and the city council in Pico Rivera. So whatever next steps we do take, we will make sure that we take them in accordance with the MOU that has been established. But we also are taking these next steps to ensure that we begin to bring some collaboration from the city of Pico Rivera, as well as the El Rancho Unified School District, so that no one is left impacted negatively. But as we begin to make different transitions and different pivots as are recommended, or as we begin to take all this feedback and consider this, we can look at what our next steps are. But hopefully we do look to see what our next steps are. But again, there is no neglect here of any of the impacted demographics, whether it's the aging community, the community with disabilities, or any of our student riders who ride up and down the 60. So we are considering data. We are taking into consideration some of the impacts that Jairo mentioned as far as infrastructure challenges as it relates specifically to line 60. But again, we understand what our responsibilities are, and we are being very responsible to those requirements as it relates to Title VI, as it relates to a service equity analysis, and as it relates to any type of outreach that will be required of us. One of the things that we are committed to is to over communicate on this particular project to ensure that we do not leave anyone without the necessary transportation as it relates to any of the folks that currently ride our our transportation system specific there to the city of Pico Rivera. So again, we will be working closely with the city of Pico Rivera and their folks to ensure that we do what is required as it relates to Title VI, service equity analysis and outreach. But again, we will be following up Jesse, Natalie, and Pamela as it relates to your concerns and your questions this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John, for that guest appearance. Alex, are you raising your hand, or who is main conference? I'm sorry.
No, not me. Not sure who main conference is, but gonna go ahead and ask them to unmute themselves.
Alrighty.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, apologies. It appears that I'm logged into a different Zoom account that has main conference as my name. But my name is Javier Hernandez. I'm the assistant to the city manager in the city of Pico Rivera. Just out of curiosity, I'm wondering if it'd be possible to share the analysis that was completed that led to this proposed conclusion of this.
Absolutely, Javier, this is James Gomes again. We can share with you, actually, it's available on our project website, the existing conditions report, which details all of the different ridership statistics. And we can drop that.
These
I think we're having a pretty bad connection with you. Oh, I don't know if he just dropped off or not. I think he did. Oh,
Yikes.
I think he's still here.
I'm not seeing. Javier, can you hear us? We just wanted to let you know that you were cutting in and out, but we did hear your question regarding.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, John? Oh, yes. So just responding to Javier, we did hear your question requesting the analysis, but the rest of your comment or question didn't come through.
Hey, was I cutting out?
Yes, we hear you now.
Oh gosh, sorry about that. Unless I've been transferring over to my different internet here. Sorry, let me just back up a little bit. I was just requesting if you'd be able to share the analysis that was completed that ultimately led to the proposed conclusion of discontinuing the line. Be really interested to see in the ridership comparative analysis regarding ridership per revenue mile, ridership per service hour, ridership per stop, things like that, that I think would be very useful in helping us understand how this conclusion was made, or this proposed discontinuation of line 60. I just found it interesting that a lot of the comparative analysis was comparing line 60 to all the other lines in the system. And as you duly noted, this line is very unique and different compared to all the other lines, and therefore would be comparing apples and oranges to make that final determination. So I think it would behoove us all at Pico Rivera to better understand exactly what went into the analysis, and that led the conclusion for this proposed discontinuation.
Thank you, Javier. So in the chat of this meeting, you will see two links. The first is the link to our project website, where you can find a lot of the reports that have been produced and published so far. And then followed by that link, there's a link specifically to the existing conditions report that James previously mentioned.
Okay.
That includes that analysis. But of course, if there are further questions regarding any of those pieces, we're happy to follow on with you. And Jesse, your hand is raised once again.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just another question that Javier might have stirred in me, and it's the last one, I promise. In addition to the analysis, I understand that Montebello Bus Lines does have a tall order in the sense of providing transit services in the midst of limited resources. But is there a way that we could see if there were funding pursuits that could have been possible to potentially keep the line active compared to other service lines? Are there grants or other like MSRC programs or anything like that that Pico Rivera or Metro or ourselves can all sign on together to see if we can find additional funding for this before the option to further move the proposal to discontinue the service altogether?
That is an excellent question, Jesse. And it's my understanding that in our process so far, because this is a preliminary recommendation and no final decisions have been made, we have yet to explore funding or new funding opportunities. But we'll be sure to include that in our upcoming activities as it pertains to the remainder of the study process. But I'll also ask either James or anyone on the MBL team to chime in if there's additional detail that y'all want to offer Jesse.
I can jump in, Karina.
Go
Yeah,
right
Jesse,
ahead.
Jesse, as Karina just stated, right, again, this is very preliminary. These are proposals. These are things that have, these are proposals based on data that Nelson Nygaard has been able to analyze and vet through. But definitely, there's definitely opportunities for discussion. Again, as I mentioned previously, we definitely want to see our neighboring stakeholders engage and see again what you guys can do internally as a city, what grant opportunities or funding opportunities may be available, but not just with the city of Pico Rivera, but also with the El Rancho Unified School District. So to your question, Jesse, there's definitely opportunity for additional questions and conversations. Obviously, it would take some coordination between our staff and your staff, but I think there's definitely opportunities for those discussions. We would just have to ensure that we engage with our leadership and your leadership to get to that place and to have those conversations. But again, these are all preliminary, again, but they are proposals based on data that is being requested. And again, there are links that can direct folks to that data. But again, if yourself or Mr. Hernandez have some additional questions or would like to have additional discussions, we definitely have, there's definitely opportunity to take that and to work collectively as it relates to line 60.
Great, thank you for the opportunity.
So thank you for that, Jesse. It looks like Javier, you have another contribution to make to today's discussion.
Yeah, just I wanted to make a couple of points, and it was mainly to the comment that John made. And thank you, John. We really appreciate that. I know that ever since we've signed on to that MOU, there's really has been a higher level of engagement between the two cities, and that's something we certainly appreciate and certainly welcome and hope to improve upon even more so. But one thing I just wanted to bring to, I guess, MBL's attention, and this doesn't necessarily pertain to the study today, but as much as it pertains to the strategic plan moving forward, and that is we're really hopeful that the strategic plan doesn't necessarily bind MBL for a long term, and that it is indeed a living document. The reason I say that is because the city of Pico Rivera very recently was awarded multiple grants from various entities to explore a more multimodal future in our community, and where we definitely want to look at enhancing access to transit, active transportation, micro mobility, and a number of other things. It's going to be an ongoing, it's going to be a very comprehensive, community-focused participatory process. And what we would hope is that if we find that as a result of these studies that we're going to be undertaking, that it would serve as an opportunity to yet again improve upon or enhance this strategic plan in the future. So if we find, for example, that there's opportunities to grow ridership by increasing density along the particular corridors, we would love to work with Montebello Bus Lines to see how we could potentially accommodate that future growth with ridership opportunities for the transit lines. So that's one point. Another point, forgive me, I may have seen maybe an old version of this at some point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I may have seen that line 60 was going to actually be consolidated with another line and expand that route. I think it may have been Route 70. Is that something that was looked at early on, evaluated? What were the conclusions from that, or am I wrong altogether?
No, Javier, I'm happy to answer that. First of all, thank you for your two comments and questions. Yes, that was one of the initial concepts that we took out to the community, and that was done earlier this year. So we broke down the service area into 4 different areas: the Montebello Pico Rivera area, the Whittier area to the north, and then downtown LA as well. And we received feedback on the different proposals at that time. And those are just initial concepts. We did look at the possibility of linking together lines 60 and line 70. And as we noted very early in the presentation, that those are 2 lines that are similar in terms of the ridership levels that they have. Ultimately, based on the feedback we received, with the limited resources that are available, we updated that proposal or went from that service concept to this proposed recommendation of eliminating line 60 outright. We think that there's possibilities to enhance line 70. We think it has a lot of potential as well with some of the future development that's going to be occurring in the city of Montebello, and just the fact that it is a service that operates entirely within the city. So that is something that was correct that you saw, and that was the initial concept. Going back to your first point, this being a living document, absolutely. This is the plan that's going to be resulting from all of this study and all of this community feedback is really a framework for the next 5 years and how Mdl can improve, how it can grow over time. So there will definitely be opportunities as development occurs, as changes occur. The study that you were describing, the multimodal study, that may influence how the recommendations get implemented over the next several years. So absolutely, there's going to be room to make modifications as the city move forwards and as you all move forward with your study. So I did have one question for you. I was curious to know what the timeline is for that multimodal study.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. I could certainly send you additional information. I don't have all that information, the timeline directly in front of me. I actually joined while I was driving myself, but nevertheless, I'll certainly provide that to you via email. But we have recently received our notice to proceed with Caltrans on this grant several months ago, and we're anticipating to launch our first round of community outreach and engagement in the month of early August. And then, of course, we'll be establishing technical advisory committees. We'd love to formally, personally invite members of Montebello Bus Lines to join in that technical advisory committee, as well as other members of the city. So we anticipate the TAC meetings to commence. I would probably imagine August as well. It's kind of like August is the big kickoff public launch date, but we've made some announcements to the public about it. They are anticipating it. We're also going to be undertaking a pretty comprehensive, specific plan development for historic Whittier Boulevard. And so, again, the time frame is kind of in parallel with the multimodal transit study that we're going to be doing as well.
Thank you for those details.
Oh, quick question though. You meant when you talked a little bit about one of those options that you looked at for consolidating line 70 and line 60. You know, and of course, once I have an opportunity to dive a little deeper into the data, it'd probably be a much more informed comment by that point. But it just seems to me like, you know, when initially when this study was proposed to evaluate the service of Mdl, it was introduced as a way to enhance service. And I get it, we're talking service-wide or system-wide. I don't know if members who utilize line 60 would see it that way. Obviously, the discontinuation of service in an environment where we're trying to promote transit usage, reduction in vehicle miles traveled, it just seems almost like a contradiction. But I think combining line 70 and line 60 would be a good compromise, and we'd love to maybe see further analysis on what the ridership potential would be with that. And then maybe we can comment on that as a city as a whole as well.
Yeah, and Javier, to your point, at no point has this COA been anything to create any negative impacts for anybody. So we are looking at finding solutions that are efficient throughout the system. But again, as I've conveyed this evening, we definitely want to have additional conversations with your team there in Pico Rivera. And if there's solutions that we can collectively agree on, but not only with the city of Pico Rivera, but also with El Rancho Unified School District, that we get all the stakeholders together and really identify some solutions. But I think there is some responsibility that their shoulders should be bearing here as well, not just the two cities, being that the student riders are within their demographic. So we definitely want to work collectively. But again, at no point has this been a negative. We definitely are looking for solutions and open to, again, future conversations with you and your team, so that we can ensure no one gets left stranded anywhere on any of the systems where we serviced previously, currently, or in the future. So definitely looking forward to working with you and your team going forward.
Okay, fantastic. No, I appreciate that, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Javier. Again, it looks like Esther has a comment to add, so let's unmute her.
Yes, I have a question. So El Rancho Unified District has been mentioned multiple times now, and I would like to know if the district received an official notice from Montebello Bus Lines. That's my first question. And as I mentioned, I have been looking at the MLB moves. There was also mention of possible route to Rio Hondo College. So I was interested to know if that will be discussed today, or if that's like a not in the works anymore or not being considered. Thank you.
James, I can take the first question and I'll give you the Rio Hondo question. Again, Esther, thank you so much for being with us this evening and participating. To your question, yes, El Rancho Unified School District, we did provide an invitation to two specific individuals within their leadership to ensure that they participated in this conversation this evening. But what we also can do is once we conclude this evening, we are recording. So we can also forward them a copy of this virtual meeting to ensure that they are notified that we are requesting their participation. But on our side with Montebello Bus Lines, we will ensure that we engage with them and we make contact with someone there at El Rancho Unified to ensure that there is participation on their end.
Thank you, John.
And Nestor, to answer your question regarding Rio Hondo Community College, that is something that is being explored for some of the future growth for the Mdl system. It is not being recommended as an initial change. So with the initial changes, we're looking at using existing resources. So that is something that's going to require additional services, and that'll probably be within the 2 to 5 year time frame. But that has not been determined exactly when that would be recommended.
Thank you, James.
Great. And I just want to echo what James said, that the recommendations are really based on the amount of resources that the agency has. So should more resources be unlocked, then different services or services look a little different. I see Bill Lamb raised his hand, and then Christine.
Hello?
Hi, Bill. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Fabulous.
So,
we can hear you.
Yes. So I apologize for signing late 6:05. But for the line 10 extension to Cascade LA, I'm okay with extending all the way over there. But in terms of bus stops while serving Eli, hopefully you could set a westbound bus stop at Floral and Atlantic connection with line 2 and 5. While the eastbound we just side the and for line 30 to into South Pasadena, where's the
You
No.
still with us, Bill? I think we might have lost Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
Hello?
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
Yeah,
He's back.
sorry. So on line 30 extend to South Pasadena, where's the turnaround at? And also, is the line running on Huntington and Fair Oaks? Because I'm worried that it might potentially duplicate with other Metro bus lines, such as the Metro 179 and 260. But I'm not sure if running on Mission at Garfield is between Fair Oaks and Huntington, whether it's feasible to run on that street. And for the lines 50 and 55 split thing, I'm not sure about splitting it into two lines, but the main part is can I see the map of the 50 and 55? I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to see it because I signed it late, so please forgive me.
So Bill, we don't have the full extents on this particular presentation, but we do have on the screen currently the existing alignment on the left. And then on the right side, we can see the split of the line 50 and 55 on Greenwood Ave.
Oh, I see. But I was about to talk about the one in the La Mirada part.
Mm.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bill, we don't have that map because this presentation was just focused on Pico Rivera. But thanks for commenting on the other proposals.
Okay, then. Well, I guess I'll just stop right here. Though,
okay, but Bill, I'd like to go ahead and answer your question about line 30, the turnaround. So we've been working with the city of South Pasadena actually over the last couple of weeks, and while the end of line has not been determined, we're looking at the vicinity of Mission and Fair Oaks. Can't say exactly where the bus will turn around, so that's something that would need to be approved by the city of South Pasadena, but we're in conversation with city staff there.
Okay, then.
Your line 10 question, I think you requested a bus stop along the route. That's where you cut out a little bit. What was that location?
So when serving Eli, due to the extension of Castile Lake, the westbound bus stop would be on Floral at Atlantic after the bus turns left, and the eastbound bus stop would be just inside the transit center.
Just as we haven't finalized the line 30 end of line, that the line 10 is also something that we'll be finalizing in conversation with other entities.
Okay.
Such as Valley Metro over the next couple of weeks, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the very detailed recommendations. Christine, are you still looking to chime in? We have 1 minute left in today's meeting.
Yes, I am. Hi.
Lovely.
Thank you for taking my comment. I just wanted to say, I do realize that you mentioned that somebody reached out to 2 people from the school district for this particular conversation. I really think that as a community, they should have been reached out to much sooner when these talks were barely opened up next year. And I apologize if somebody already said this. I jumped on kind of late. I just got off work. But next year, California passed a law that all students that are in the high school are gonna start 8:30. So this is gonna be really hard on a lot of parents. I feel like if there's not enough ridership on 60, maybe we can come to some kind of a creative solution, like have more buses in the morning, have those buses rerouted in the day, come back in the afternoon. There's a lot of kids that depend on them in the evening too, that maybe they're in drama or sports or whatever it is they participate in. Even if people were to know, like, hey, this bus only runs in the morning and the afternoon, then they know, okay, if I'm going to go to Walmart, if I'm going to go to, Big Saver or whatever, then I know I need to get there in the morning or at the end. Like, just some kind of a creative way to generate more revenue, more ridership for you guys, and as well help us. Possibly look into doing monthly bus passes so that you guys are secure in knowing, okay, these amount of people for sure, this amount of kids will be riding, or students or whoever, because it's gonna take a big toll on us. Knowing that this was a state law that was passed, maybe we could even reach out to the state for funding or grants or something. But I feel like, and I understand it's in the preliminary stages, and I'm glad you guys have opened this up for a conversation to everyone. I feel like a lot of people that needed to be a part of this possibly are not on here or not joining in the call, but I just feel like there might be an answer somewhere else before you guys do away with the 60. And I know it's been said, you guys are saying you're not doing away with it right now, but anything that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for those creative solutions that you're recommending. We'll be sure to continue the conversation with the folks that y'all have mentioned. I also want to just share other comment in the chat from Juan Munoz. And Juan has a lot of comments regarding the line 10, as well as some duplication that they're seeing with El Sol, the LA County Shuttle, Metro Lines 258, and the Commerce City Bus. So thank you for that detailed comment, Juan. And Melissa, noting your comment regarding the need for the 60. At this point, I'm going to close the discussion segment and hand it over to James to close this out for the evening. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Yeah, I'd like to just echo Penny and say thank you, everyone who participated. This was really the first discussion that we've had regarding the proposal for line 60. So we expect further discussions, and I'm glad everyone talked about different creative solutions, different partnerships coming together to try and figure out how to help provide transportation within the city of Pico Rivera. So our next steps will be to just review all of the feedback we received, not only from this meeting, but over the course of the past several weeks. We're going to continue conversations with our different partners, and speaking on behalf of the city, I'm sure there will be more conversations with both school districts, the school district and the city of Pico Rivera. And after we take in all of those different considerations, both what the data tells us, as well as the feedback from the community and the different partners, the consultant team will finalize recommendations for the city. Ultimately, it's up to this city council to approve the different changes that are proposed, both in the short term and longer term. But we, again, are very happy that everyone participated today. And thank you again for all of your questions and comments. I'd like to give city staff an opportunity to have any closing remarks.
Staff, you should have the opportunity to unmute yourselves and comment if you'd like.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for sharing your feedback. We will be discussing this internally as well with the project team and engaging this group again to see how we proceed with this project and the implementation of it.
All right, thank you again, everyone. Have a great evening, and we appreciate you participating.
Hi, really quick, can I ask a question?
Hi, Melissa. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to confirm, so you're no longer trying to merge line 60 and 70. Your proposal is to just completely remove 60.
That is the updated proposal. Melissa, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And not to keep folks, but someone had a question about how they can stay in touch with this team after this meeting. Please visit the project website where there is a form that you can submit a written comment, and where you can find the reports that we were referring to throughout the presentation. And have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for your time.